For over 2,000 years, Zen masters have sat quietly, observing the nature of their own minds and hearts. They searched for answers to questions. How can I find peace? Why does my mind feel so restless? How can I be free from the thoughts and emotions that trouble me? Tonight, we will explore teachings that reveal what they learned, not as rules to follow, but as gentle invitations to look more closely at your own experience. Before we begin, feel free to share what time it is and where you're listening from. You do not need to do anything special as you listen. Simply allow the words to wash over you like a gentle stream. Let your shoulders soften. Take a slow, deep breath. And let's begin our journey together. Have you ever sat down to rest, only to find that your mind refuses to be still? Your body wants to relax, but inside your head, the thoughts just keep coming. Worries about tomorrow, memories of yesterday, things you need to do, things you wish you had done differently. Round and round they go, like leaves caught in a spinning wind. Maybe you have tried to quiet your mind. Maybe you have closed your eyes, taken a breath, and hoped for silence. But the thoughts keep arriving. Plans tumble into worries. Worries tumble into memories. Memories tumble into daydreams. And before you know it, you are far away from the peaceful rest you were hoping to find. This is such a familiar feeling for so many of us. And if you have ever felt this way, please know that you are not alone, not even close. In fact, you are in the company of every human being who has ever lived. Long ago, wise teachers noticed this same restlessness in their own minds. They sat quietly and watched what was happening inside. They paid close attention to the endless stream of thoughts that seemed to flow through them. And they came up with a beautiful way to describe what they found. One ancient Tibetan text says that the untrained mind is like a waterfall, always tumbling, always rushing forward. Picture yourself standing near a waterfall somewhere in nature. Maybe it is in a forest, with tall trees all around and soft moss growing on the rocks. Or perhaps it is tucked away in some green valley, where the sound of the water echoes gently off the hills. You can hear the water rushing down, a constant flowing sound that fills the air. You can feel the cool mist on your skin, tiny droplets carried by the breeze. You can see how the water pours over the edge and falls, falls, falls. It never stops. It never pauses. It never takes a break. There is something beautiful about a waterfall. Something alive and powerful. The way the light catches the spray and makes little rainbows. The way the water seems to dance as it tumbles down. There is wonder in it. But there is also something a little overwhelming. If you have ever stood close to a waterfall, you know what I mean. So much movement. So much sound. Everything rushing, rushing, rushing. You could not stop that water if you tried. You could not slow it down. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. This is what happens inside our minds much of the time. One thought leads to another. That thought leads to another. And that one leads to 3 more. Before we know it, we have wandered far away from where we started. Our mind has taken us on a journey we did not choose, and often we do not even notice it happening until we are already far down the stream. In the Dhammapada, one of the oldest collections of the Buddha's sayings, there is a verse that captures this beautifully. It says the mind is restless and hard to control. It flies off wherever it wishes, but to tame it is a great blessing, for a tamed mind brings happiness. That is the good news hidden in this teaching. Yes, the mind can feel wild. Yes, it can seem out of control. But it does not have to stay that way. Something can be done, and that something is not harsh or difficult. It is gentle work, patient work, kind work, like tending a garden, like caring for something precious. Before we go further, it helps to understand that we can look at our thoughts in two different ways. Both are helpful, both matter, and knowing about both gives us more freedom. The first way is to pay attention to what we are thinking about. This is the everyday stuff, the content of our minds. Am I thinking about my work? Am I thinking about someone I love? Am I worrying about money? Am I remembering something that happened last week? Am I planning what to make for dinner? This matters quite a lot. What we think about shapes how we feel. When we fill our minds with kind thoughts, we tend to feel warmth inside. When we fill our minds with worried thoughts, we tend to feel anxious and tight. When we fill our minds with grateful thoughts, something in us softens and opens. The Buddha himself spoke about this. He said that whatever we frequently think about and ponder, that becomes the inclination of our mind. If we often think thoughts of kindness, kindness becomes our tendency. If we often think thoughts of worry, worry becomes our habit. Our repeated thoughts actually shape who we become. So it is helpful to notice what is going on in there, not to judge ourselves harshly, just to know, oh, this is what my mind is doing right now. This is where my attention has gone. The second way of looking is a little different. Instead of asking, what am I thinking about, we ask a simpler question. What is this thing that keeps appearing in my mind? This might sound strange at first. We are so used to paying attention to the content of our thoughts that we rarely stop to wonder about their nature. But when we do look closely, something interesting happens. We start to see that thoughts are not as solid as they seem. A thought appears. It stays for a moment. Then it is gone. Another thought takes its place. That one disappears too. They come and go like bubbles rising in water, like clouds moving across the sky, like the sound of a bird that calls once and then is silent. They seem so important when they are here. They seem so real, so solid, so true. But where do they go when they leave? They dissolve into nothing. They were never as permanent as they felt. Both ways of looking at thoughts are helpful. We do not have to choose just one. Sometimes we pay attention to what we are thinking about. We notice if our thoughts are kind or unkind, helpful or hurtful. Other times, we simply notice that thinking is happening without getting caught up in the story. Both are part of learning to be at peace with our own minds. Both help us find a little more freedom. Here is something comforting to remember when you feel frustrated with your busy mind. People have been dealing with restless thoughts for a very, very long time. The teachers who first talked about the waterfall mind lived over 2,000 years ago, and they were describing the exact same experience you and I have today. Think about that for a moment. All those centuries ago, people sat down hoping to find some quiet, and their minds wandered off. They got lost in worries about the future. They got caught up in memories of the past. They forgot what they were doing and drifted into daydreams. They made plans. They had arguments in their heads with people who were not even there. The details were different, of course. They were not thinking about the things we think about today. Their lives looked very different from ours. But the pattern was exactly the same. The mind wandered. The mind got busy. The mind would not settle down. Even the Buddha, before his awakening, struggled with his own mind. In one teaching, he describes sitting in meditation and watching thoughts of desire arise, thoughts of frustration, thoughts of restlessness. He was not born with a perfectly still mind. He had to learn, just as we do. This means you are part of a very large family. A family that stretches across time and across the whole world. Every person who has ever tried to find some inner peace has faced this same challenge. Every person who has ever sat quietly and watched their mind has noticed the same restlessness. You are walking a path that countless others have walked before you. Their footprints are all around you, even if you cannot see them. And here is the really good news. Those who walked this path before us found their way through. They discovered how to be at ease with their minds. They learned that the waterfall could be watched without drowning. They found peace not by stopping their thoughts, but by changing their relationship with them. If they could do it with the same kind of mind we have, perhaps we can too. Perhaps the peace they found is available to us as well. We just need to learn the way. Let us explore a story about someone who worked with their hands, shaping things with great patience and care. In the Buddha's time, there were craftspeople who made arrows. This was skilled work that required attention and gentleness. They would take a rough piece of wood, crooked and imperfect, and slowly shape it into something useful and true. The Buddha himself used this image to describe training the mind. He said, "Just as a fletcher straightens an arrow, so the wise person straightens the mind, which is so hard to control, so flighty, landing wherever it wishes." Imagine watching one of these craftspeople at work. The workshop is quiet. Soft light comes through the window. The air smells of wood shavings. Everything is unhurried. The craftsperson picks up a piece of wood. It is not straight yet. It has bumps and rough spots. It curves where it should be straight. It is just raw material, full of possibilities, but not yet ready to be used. Now, the craftsperson does not get angry at this piece of wood. That would be silly, would it not? Of course, the wood is imperfect. That is why the work needs to be done. Getting upset at the wood for being crooked would be like getting upset at rain for being wet. So the craftsperson simply begins. There is no frustration, no impatience, just steady, gentle attention. A little shaping here with a small tool, a little smoothing there against a stone. Nothing dramatic, nothing forceful. Just small, careful movements repeated over and over again. The hands move slowly, almost lovingly. And little by little, the wood begins to change. The rough places become smooth under the patient touch. The crooked places gradually straighten. What started as raw material, unready and imperfect, becomes a beautiful, balanced arrow. True and straight, ready for its purpose. The change happened so gradually that you could not point to the moment when the crooked wood became a straight arrow. There was no sudden transformation. There was just this gentle, ongoing work. And then one day, the work was done. This is how we work with our own minds. We are the craftsperson. Our mind is the raw material. And the work is gentle, patient, and kind. We do not need to be harsh with ourselves when our minds are crooked and rough. We do not need to force anything into shape. We simply pay attention. We notice what is happening. We make small, gentle adjustments. And little by little, something begins to shift. When our minds wander, we are not failing. We are just working with wood that has not been fully shaped yet. And that is perfectly fine. That is exactly where everyone begins. Even the masters started with crooked wood. So, how do we start this gentle work? What do we actually do? The first step is beautifully simple. We just notice. When a thought comes, we notice it. Oh, there is a thought. Like noticing a bird flying past the window. We do not need to chase the bird. We do not need to catch it. We just see it. Oh, there it goes. When the thought passes, we notice that too. Oh, it went away. It was here, and now it is not. Simple as that. We do not need to stop the thoughts from coming. We could not do that even if we tried. The waterfall keeps flowing. That is just what it does. We do not need to push thoughts away or wrestle them into silence. We do not need to figure out what they mean or analyze why they came. We just notice that thinking is happening. That is the whole practice at this stage. Just noticing. This might sound too easy, too simple. Surely there must be more to it than that. But there is something quietly powerful in this simple noticing. Most of the time, thoughts come and go without us being aware of them at all. They sneak in through the back door of our minds. They take us by the hand and lead us off on long journeys. And we do not even realize what is happening until much later, when we suddenly wake up and think, where was I just now? How did I get here? When we start to notice thoughts as they happen, something changes. We are no longer completely lost in the stream. We are beginning to see the stream itself. We are standing on the bank, watching the water go by, instead of tumbling along in the current. A beloved Zen master named Suzuki Roshi gave the simplest advice about this. He said, "Do not be bothered by your thoughts. Let them come and let them go. Let them come. Let them go." That is the whole thing. There is so much gentleness in these words. We are not fighting our thoughts. We are not trying to win a battle against our own minds. We are not pushing and struggling and forcing. We are just letting things be as they are, while staying gently aware of what is happening. Thoughts come. That is fine. Let them come. Thoughts go. That is fine too. Let them go. We just watch. We just notice. And somehow, in that simple watching, something begins to ease. Here is something important to remember. Please take this to heart. When you notice that your mind has wandered, please do not scold yourself. Please do not say harsh things like, "I am so bad at this. I cannot even pay attention for a minute. What is wrong with me?" These harsh words are just more thoughts. And they are not helpful ones. They add heaviness to something that could be light. They add struggle to something that could be easy. They turn a simple moment of waking up into another reason to feel bad about ourselves. A wise meditation teacher once said something important about this. He said, when the mind is thinking or wandering, just be aware of it. Thinking is a natural activity of the mind. You are doing well if you are aware that the mind is thinking. The wandering mind is not the problem. Your attitude that it should not be wandering, that is the problem. So instead of judging, when you notice your mind has wandered, you could simply say to yourself, "Oh, I was thinking." That is all. No big deal. And then gently, softly, kindly bring your attention back to the present moment. This coming back is not a failure. Please hear this. This coming back is actually the practice itself. Every time you notice you have wandered and gently return, you are doing exactly what you are supposed to do. You are shaping the arrow. You are training the mind. The wandering is not the problem. Minds wander. That is what they do. The harsh judgment about wandering is the problem. That is what adds the suffering. When we can let go of that judgment, when we can meet our wandering minds with kindness instead of criticism, the whole thing becomes so much easier. The struggle falls away. What remains is just this simple, gentle noticing. Coming back, again and again, with a soft heart. You might try this in your everyday life. You do not need to sit in any special way. You do not need to set aside hours of time. You do not need to go anywhere or do anything unusual. Just now and then, wherever you are, see if you can notice when thinking is happening. Maybe you are washing dishes, your hands in warm water, and you realize your mind is somewhere else entirely. It is replaying a conversation from yesterday, or planning something for tomorrow, or worrying about who knows what. That moment of realizing is the practice. Just note it gently. "Oh, I was thinking." And if you like, come back to where you are. Feel the warm water. Notice the soap bubbles. Feel the smooth dishes in your hands. You are here. Right here. This is your life, happening now. Maybe you are taking a walk and you notice your mind is busy with some worry. It is chewing on a problem, going over it again and again like a dog with a bone. That is fine. Just notice. "Oh, worrying." And feel your feet on the ground. Feel the air on your skin. Hear the sounds around you. You are here. The worry can wait. Maybe you are lying in bed at night, hoping for sleep, but your mind is racing. Thoughts are tumbling like that waterfall, one after another. That is okay too. Just notice. "Oh, lots of thinking tonight." And feel the weight of your body on the bed. Feel the softness of the pillow. You are here, in this moment, safe and warm. Over time, this simple practice starts to change things. You begin to catch thoughts a little earlier. You begin to feel a little more space around them. The waterfall is still there. Thoughts are still coming. But you are not being swept away quite so easily anymore. It is like learning to stand beside the waterfall instead of being caught in the current. The water is still falling, white and rushing. But you are on solid ground, just watching. You can appreciate its beauty without being pulled under. There is a kind of freedom in this. It grows slowly, like a plant grows. You cannot force it. You cannot rush it. But with patient tending, it begins to bloom. This freedom is not freedom from thoughts. Thoughts will always come. That is simply what minds do. As long as we are alive, thoughts will arise and pass away. The waterfall will keep flowing. But there is freedom from being completely controlled by thoughts. Freedom from being dragged around by every passing idea. Freedom to notice what is happening inside without being swept away by it. This is what the Buddha called the joy of a well-trained mind. Not a mind that has been beaten into silence. Not a mind that has been forced to be still, but a mind that has been gently, patiently befriended. A mind that we have learned to work with rather than fight against. This freedom grows through gentleness, not through force. It grows through patience, not through struggle. It grows through kindness toward ourselves, even when we forget and wander off for the 100th time. Every time we notice we have wandered and gently come back, we are watering that plant of freedom. Every time we meet our busy minds with kindness instead of criticism, we are giving it sunshine. Slowly, slowly, it grows. The waterfall keeps flowing. That is its nature. Nothing we do will stop it. But we are learning to be at peace with it. We are learning that we can watch without drowning. We are learning that the mind is not our enemy. It is just a waterfall, beautiful, powerful, and wild. And we can learn to love it even as we learn to stand peacefully beside it. Now, let us pause here for a moment. You do not need to remember everything that was said. Just let it settle in its own way, like snow falling gently and finding its place on the ground. And when you are ready, we will continue this journey together. We have been exploring what it means to have a busy mind. We have seen how thoughts tumble through us like water over a cliff, endless and rushing. And we have begun to discover that simply noticing this flow, without fighting it, is the beginning of peace. But now a question arises. If our minds are always wandering off, always getting lost in thought, how do we find our way back? What is this gentle art of returning to the present moment? The ancient teachers had a word for this. In the old language of the Buddha's teachings, this word is sati. We usually translate it as mindfulness. But the original meaning is even simpler and more beautiful than that. Sati means to remember. Think about what it feels like to forget something. Maybe you have walked into a room and suddenly could not recall why you came. You stand there, looking around, feeling a bit lost. What was I here for? The purpose that brought you has slipped away, and you are left feeling slightly adrift. Or perhaps you have been reading a book, and after several pages, you realize you have no idea what you just read. Your eyes moved over the words, but your mind was somewhere else entirely. You forgot to actually be there for the reading. This forgetting happens constantly in our lives. We forget where we are. We forget what we are doing. We forget to be present for our own experience. The body is here, but the mind has wandered off to some other place, some other time. Mindfulness, at its heart, is simply the opposite of this forgetting. It is remembering. Remembering to be here. Remembering to come back. Remembering that this moment, right now, is where our life is actually happening. The Buddha spoke of this remembering in many ways. He said that mindfulness is the path to the deathless. It is the way out of confusion. Those who are mindful are fully alive. Those who are not mindful are as if already gone. These words might sound serious, even a little stern. But really, they are pointing to something very simple and very tender. When we are lost in thought, we miss our lives. When we remember to be present, we find our lives again. That is all. There is a lovely story about someone who discovered a simple reminder for this practice of remembering. This person was traveling by ship across a great expanse of water. The journey took many days. There was nothing to see but ocean in every direction, and it was easy to feel a bit lost out there, surrounded by so much blue emptiness. In the small room where this traveler was staying, there was a map posted on the wall. It showed the layout of the ship, all the different decks and rooms and passageways. And on this map, there was a small arrow pointing to one particular spot. Underneath the arrow were 3 simple words. You are here. Such an ordinary thing. Just a map helping people find their way around a ship. But something about those words struck this traveler deeply. You are here, not somewhere else, not in the past, not in the future, not lost in worry or planning or remembering. Here, right here, this is where you are. For the rest of the journey, those words became a kind of quiet practice. Walking along the deck, feeling the salt wind, the traveler would silently say, "You are here." Sitting in the dining room, tasting the food, hearing the conversations around, you are here. Lying in bed at night, feeling the gentle rocking of the ship on the waves, you are here. It was so simple, and yet it changed everything. Instead of spending the whole journey lost in thought, this person actually experienced the voyage, the vastness of the ocean, the ever-changing colors of the sky, the feeling of being carried across deep waters toward a distant shore. You are here. 3 words. A complete practice. This is what mindfulness really is. Not something complicated or difficult. Just this gentle remembering. You are here. Come back. You are here. We wander off 1,000 times. That is fine. That is just what minds do. But each time we notice we have wandered, we can remember, oh, I am here. And we return. The returning is not a failure. Please remember this. The returning is the whole point. If we never wandered, we would never need to return. And it is in the returning that we build the muscle of presence. It is in the coming back, again and again, that something slowly strengthens in us. A Thai forest master named Ajahn Chah used to say that our practice is very simple. When you sit, know that you are sitting. When you walk, know that you are walking. When you eat, know that you are eating. That is all. Just know what you are doing while you are doing it. This knowing is not complicated. It is not intellectual. It is just being aware. Oh, I am sitting. Oh, I am walking. Oh, I am breathing. Oh, I am here. There is a sweetness in this simplicity. We do not need to add anything to the moment. We do not need to make it special or spiritual or profound. We just need to know that it is happening. That is enough. That is more than enough. When we really settle into this knowing, something relaxes in us. The constant reaching stops, at least for a moment. The endless wanting stops. We are just here, doing what we are doing, being what we are being. And there is a quiet joy in that, a sense of finally coming home. There is another story about someone learning to stay present, and it comes from a very different setting. This person was learning to climb. Not tall mountains at first, just rock faces and boulders, learning the basics of how to move safely on stone. There was a teacher, someone experienced, who was guiding this new climber through the early lessons. One of the first things the teacher said was this: "Stay over your feet." The new climber did not understand at first. "What do you mean, stay over your feet?" The teacher explained. "When you are climbing, there is a temptation to lean forward, to reach for the next hold before you are ready, to be already thinking about where you want to go instead of where you actually are. But this is dangerous. If you lean too far forward, you lose your balance. Your weight is no longer centered, and that is when you fall. Stay over your feet means keep your weight centered over your foundation. Do not topple forward into the future. Be here, where your feet actually are, before you take the next step." The new climber tried this, and it was remarkable how often the urge arose to lean ahead, to reach for what was next, to leave the present position before it was truly time. Again and again, the teacher would say gently, "Stay over your feet. Come back to where you are. Trust that the next hold will be there when you are ready for it." This teaching was about climbing, yes, but it was also about so much more. It was about life itself, about how we are always leaning forward, always rushing ahead, always living in the next moment before we have fully arrived in this one. Stay over your feet. Feel where you are right now. Trust that the path will continue to unfold. But for now, be here. Fully here, with your weight resting on solid ground. This is such a beautiful teaching for our daily lives. How often are we already in the next moment before this one is finished? How often do we lean forward into what is coming, losing our balance in what is here? Even in simple things, eating dinner, but already thinking about what we will do after. Taking a shower, but already planning the day ahead. Talking with a friend, but already composing what we will say next. Always reaching, always leaning, never quite settled in our own feet. The invitation is to come back, to feel the ground, to trust that we will get to the next moment when it arrives. For now, this is where we are. This is where life is actually happening. You might notice something as you try to be present. Thoughts have a way of slipping in without announcing themselves. A sound happens, and you hear it. You know a sound is happening. A sensation arises in your body, and you feel it. You know something is being felt. These experiences have a kind of solidity to them. They make an impression as they arrive. But thoughts are different. Thoughts are slippery. They slide into the mind so quietly, so gently, that we often do not notice they have arrived. They are like mist creeping into a valley. One moment the air is clear. The next moment, without quite seeing it happen, everything is covered in fog. This is why it can be so hard to catch thoughts as they arise. By the time we notice we are thinking, we are usually already far down the road. The thought has taken us by the hand and led us away, and we only wake up when we are already lost. In the traditional teachings, this is called papancha. It is a beautiful old word that means something like mental proliferation or the spreading out of the mind. One thought leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to a whole world of thinking. And it happens so fast, so smoothly, that we do not see the links being made. This is not a problem to be fixed. It is simply something to understand. Thoughts are slippery by nature. They do not announce themselves the way sounds and sensations do. So we need to be patient with ourselves when we find we have wandered far away. The practice is not to prevent this wandering. The Buddha himself never said we should have no thoughts. The practice is simply to notice, when we notice, and then to gently return. You are here. Come back. Stay over your feet. One way to work with this slipperiness is to get curious about where in a thought's life you notice it. Every thought has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It arises, it stays for a moment, and then it passes away. Like a guest visiting a house. The guest arrives, stays for a while, and then leaves. Most of the time, we only notice thoughts after they have already taken us somewhere. We wake up in the middle of a whole story, a whole train of thinking, and we realize, oh, I have been gone. It is like noticing a guest only after they have been in your house for an hour, rearranging the furniture. But sometimes, with practice, we start to notice a little earlier. We catch the thought while it is still happening, while the guest is still in the living room. Oh, there is thinking. And just that noticing is enough to loosen the grip. And occasionally, in moments of real clarity, we notice right at the beginning. We see the thought arrive. We see the guest knock at the door. And in that seeing, something remarkable happens. The thought loses its power. It is just a thought. Just a small arising in the mind. Not a big deal at all. There is no judgment in this practice. We are not trying to achieve some perfect score of catching thoughts early. We are simply getting curious. Where did I notice that one? After it was gone? In the middle? Right at the start? This curiosity itself is a form of mindfulness. It keeps us interested, engaged, present. And over time, without forcing anything, we naturally begin to notice a little sooner, a little more clearly. The Buddha encouraged this kind of careful attention. He said that a person who is mindful knows when a thought has arisen. They know when a thought is present. They know when a thought passes away. This knowing is itself a form of wisdom. It shows us that thoughts come and go. They do not last. They are not solid. And we do not have to be swept away by them. Let us talk about the difference between being absent and being present, because understanding this difference is at the heart of everything we are exploring. Being absent is what happens most of the time. The body is here, doing whatever it is doing, but the mind is elsewhere, planning the future, replaying the past, having imaginary conversations, worrying about things that may never happen, building castles in the air or fighting battles that exist only in thought. There is nothing wrong with thinking, of course. The mind thinks. That is its job. But when we are completely absorbed in thought, we miss the life that is happening right in front of us. We miss the taste of our food because we are thinking about a problem at work. We miss the smile of someone we love because we are rehearsing what we want to say next. We miss the beauty of a sunset because we are planning tomorrow. This is what it means to be absent. To be somewhere other than where we actually are. Being present is simply the opposite. It is arriving fully in this moment. Feeling what is here to be felt. Seeing what is here to be seen. Tasting, touching, hearing, knowing. Not lost in thoughts about experience, but actually having the experience itself. The Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh put it beautifully. He said, "Life can only be found in the present moment." The past is gone. The future is not yet here. If we do not go back to ourselves in the present moment, we cannot be in touch with life. This is not about rejecting thought or fighting the mind. It is simply about remembering to be here for our lives. To taste the tea while drinking tea. To feel the breeze while the breeze is blowing. To be with the person in front of us while they are speaking. To arrive fully in the life we are already living. You might wonder how to practice this in daily life. How do we remember to be present when there are so many things pulling at our attention? The truth is, there is no special technique, no secret method. Just this gentle remembering, sprinkled throughout the day. When you wake up in the morning, before you reach for anything or start planning, just feel yourself lying there. Feel the bed beneath you. Feel your body warm and resting. Take one conscious breath. You are here. The day has begun. When you eat, take a moment to actually taste your food. Not every bite, maybe. That might feel like too much. But now and then, really taste something. Feel the texture. Notice the flavors. Someone grew this food. Someone prepared it. It is nourishing your body right now. You are here for it. When you walk from one place to another, see if you can feel your feet touching the ground. Even for a few steps. Feel the contact, the pressure, the small movements of balance. You are not just getting somewhere. You are walking. This is what walking feels like. When you talk with someone, try to really listen. Not just waiting for your turn to speak. Actually hearing their words, seeing their face, being curious about what they are trying to share. You are here with this person. This moment of connection is real and alive. None of this needs to be intense or effortful. It is more like seasoning than a main course. A little presence here, a little remembering there, gently coming back whenever you notice you have drifted away. There is a beautiful instruction that appears in many Buddhist teachings. It says simply, whatever you are doing, be aware that you are doing it. This sounds almost too simple to be meaningful. Of course I know what I am doing. I am walking. I am eating. I am talking. But do we really know? Or are we doing one thing with our bodies while our minds are off doing something completely different? The practice is to close this gap, to bring the mind back to where the body already is, to be unified, whole, present, not scattered across past and future, but gathered here, in this moment, doing this one thing. When body and mind are together, something settles, something relaxes. We are no longer pulled in different directions. We are just here, complete, at peace. This is not a state we achieve once and then hold forever. It is a coming back, again and again, a gentle returning. The mind wanders, and we bring it back. The mind wanders again, and we bring it back again. This is the practice. This is the path. There is nothing wrong with the wandering. The beauty is in the return. As we close this part of our journey, let us remember the simplicity of what we have been exploring. Mindfulness is not complicated. It is not something only monks and nuns can do. It is not reserved for people who sit in meditation for hours every day. It is available to everyone, in every moment, no matter where you are or what you are doing. Mindfulness is just remembering. Remembering to be here. Remembering to come back. Remembering that this moment, however ordinary it may seem, is precious and alive. You are here. These 3 small words can become a lifeline. Whenever you feel lost, whenever the mind has carried you away, whenever you wake up and realize you have been gone, you can say them softly to yourself. You are here. Feel your body. Feel your breath. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Look around and see where you actually are. Listen to the sounds that are here right now. Notice the quality of light. Feel the temperature of the air on your skin. This is your life, not the thoughts about your life, not the memories or the plans, not the worries or the hopes. This, right here, right now. This moment is complete in itself. It lacks nothing. It needs nothing added. Stay over your feet. Do not topple forward into what comes next. Trust that you will get there when it is time. For now, just be where you are. Just rest in this moment. Just let yourself arrive, fully and completely, in the life you are already living. Now, let us pause and rest together. And when you are ready, we will continue walking this path together. We have been learning to notice our thoughts. We have been practicing the gentle art of remembering to be present, of coming back when we wander away, simply noticing without judgment, letting thoughts come and letting them go. This is a beautiful foundation. But now we can go a little deeper, because not all thoughts are the same. Some thoughts lead us toward peace. Others lead us toward suffering. And learning to tell the difference is one of the most valuable skills we can develop. This is not about judging ourselves harshly. It is not about feeling guilty when certain thoughts arise. It is simply about developing a kind of inner wisdom, a gentle discernment that helps us know which thoughts to follow and which to let pass by. There is a common saying in some spiritual circles: follow your heart. It sounds beautiful. It sounds wise. And there is some truth in it. The heart knows things the mind does not always understand. There is wisdom in our depths. But a wise teacher from the forest monasteries of Thailand once offered a different perspective. He said, "Our practice is not to follow the heart. Our practice is to train the heart." At first, this might sound strange. Are we not supposed to trust ourselves? Are we not supposed to listen to our inner voice? But think about it for a moment. Is everything in our hearts wise and good? Is every impulse worth following? Is every desire a trustworthy guide? If we are honest, we know the answer. Sometimes our hearts are filled with kindness and love. Sometimes they are filled with fear and resentment. Sometimes our impulses lead us toward connection and generosity. Sometimes they lead us toward things we later regret. The heart is like a garden. Many things grow there. Some are flowers. Some are weeds. If we simply follow whatever is growing, without any discernment, we may find ourselves wandering in a tangle of thorns. But if we learn to tend the garden, to nourish what is beautiful, and gently remove what causes harm, the heart becomes a place of real wisdom, a place we can trust, not because we blindly follow it, but because we have trained it with care. Long ago, before the Buddha was fully awakened, he spent time in deep contemplation. He sat quietly, watching his own mind, trying to understand how it worked. And during this time, he made an important discovery. He noticed that his thoughts could be divided into two kinds. On one side, there were thoughts rooted in grasping, in wanting things to be different than they are. Thoughts of craving and desire, thoughts of ill will and irritation, thoughts of harshness toward himself or others. On the other side, there were thoughts rooted in something else entirely. Thoughts of letting go and contentment, thoughts of goodwill and kindness, thoughts of gentleness and compassion. As he watched these two kinds of thoughts arise, he began to notice something important. The thoughts on the first side, the ones rooted in grasping and ill will, left him feeling agitated. They stirred up his mind. They led to more thinking, more restlessness, more suffering. The thoughts on the second side had a different quality. They brought a sense of ease. They settled the mind rather than disturbing it. They led toward peace. This was a profound realization. Not all thoughts are equal. Some lead toward suffering. Some lead toward freedom. And we can learn to tell the difference. The Buddha described this discovery in a teaching that has been passed down for over 2,000 years. He said that when a thought of ill will or craving arose in him, he would recognize it clearly. He would say to himself, "This thought has arisen in me." And then he would reflect, does this thought lead to my own suffering? Does it lead to the suffering of others? Does it lead to the suffering of both? When he saw clearly that the thought led to suffering, something happened. The thought lost its power. It began to fade. He did not have to fight it or push it away. Simply seeing its nature clearly was enough for it to dissolve. This is a gentle teaching. There is no violence in it. No war against our own minds. Just clear seeing. Just recognition. Just understanding where a thought leads. When we see that a path leads into a swamp, we do not have to force ourselves not to walk there. We simply see where it goes, and naturally, we choose a different way. But this raises a question. If we are supposed to let thoughts come and go, as we learned before, why does it matter what kind of thoughts they are? Why not just let all thoughts pass through equally? This is a good question, and the answer has to do with something the Buddha pointed out. He said that whatever we frequently think about and ponder, that becomes the inclination of our mind. In other words, thoughts are not just passing visitors. They leave traces. They create pathways. The more we think a certain kind of thought, the easier it becomes to think that thought again. It is like walking through a field of tall grass. The first time, you have to push through. But if you walk the same way again and again, a path forms. And soon you find yourself walking that path without even choosing to. This is true for both kinds of thoughts. If we frequently think thoughts of kindness, kindness becomes our tendency. The pathways of kindness become well-worn and easy to travel. But if we frequently think thoughts of resentment, resentment becomes our habit. Those pathways deepen too. So, while we do not need to fight our thoughts or push them away, we do want to be aware of which pathways we are strengthening. We want to use our energy wisely. We want to nourish what leads to peace and gently withdraw our attention from what leads to suffering. Let us explore a story that the Buddha used to explain how to work with these two kinds of thoughts. Imagine a cowherd in an ancient village, somewhere in a green countryside with rolling hills and wide fields. This person's job is to watch over a herd of cows, to make sure they stay safe and do not wander where they should not go. The cowherd knows each of the cows, their habits, their tendencies, which ones are calm and easy, which ones like to wander off. It is a simple life, but it requires attention. Now, during certain times of the year, the fields around the village are full of crops. The rice is growing tall in the paddies. The vegetables are ripening in neat rows. These crops are the livelihood of the village. They will feed families through the coming months. They are precious. If the cows wander into these fields, they will eat the crops and cause great damage. The farmers will suffer. The village will suffer. What took months to grow can be destroyed in a few careless moments. So during this time, the cowherd must be very watchful, very attentive. There is no room for daydreaming or distraction. If a cow starts to wander toward the crops, even beginning to move in that direction, the cowherd must act quickly. A gentle tap with a stick, a call to come back, a step in that direction to guide the animal away, constant vigilance to keep the herd where it belongs. This is what it is like to work with thoughts that lead toward suffering. When a thought of ill will arises, when a thought of craving or harshness begins to form, we need to be attentive. We need to recognize it clearly. We need to gently guide our attention away from it, just as the cowherd guides the wandering cow back to safety. This does not mean we are angry at the thought. The cowherd is not angry at the cow. The cow is just doing what cows do. But the cowherd knows that if the cow wanders into the crops, there will be problems. So there is a gentle but firm redirection. We can do the same with our thoughts. When we notice a thought that leads towards suffering, we can recognize it with kindness. Oh, there is that thought again. And then we can gently turn our attention elsewhere. We do not have to follow it. We do not have to feed it. We simply let it go and come back to the present moment. But the story continues. There is another time of year after the harvest has been gathered. The crops are no longer in the fields. They have been collected and stored safely in the village barns and storehouses. Now the landscape looks different. The fields are open and empty. The stubble of harvested plants lies low to the ground. There is nothing precious growing that needs protection. Now the cowherd's job is different. The cows can wander more freely. There is nothing for them to damage. They can graze here and there, moving across the open land as they please. So the cowherd can sit at the foot of a tree, perhaps a great old tree with spreading branches that offer shade from the afternoon sun. The cowherd can rest there, relaxed and at ease. The cows are there, moving about, grazing here and there. Now and then, the cowherd glances up to see where they are. They are fine. There is nothing to worry about. The cowherd simply needs to be aware that they are present. No urgency. No constant vigilance. Just a gentle knowing that the cows are around, doing what cows do. This is what it is like to work with thoughts that are wholesome and peaceful. When a thought of kindness arises, when a feeling of goodwill or gratitude appears, we do not need to guard against it. We do not need to be vigilant or worried. We can simply relax and know that it is there. These thoughts are like cows in an empty field. They can move about freely. They cause no harm. We can sit under our tree and enjoy their presence. The Buddha said we only need to be mindful that these wholesome states are present. That is all. No need to do anything special. No need to grasp at them or try to hold on to them. Just a gentle awareness that something good is here. This teaching shows us that mindfulness is not one single thing. It has different flavors, different qualities, depending on what we are working with. With thoughts that lead towards suffering, mindfulness has an active quality. It is watchful, attentive, ready to gently redirect. Like the cowherd during the growing season, we stay alert. We notice when we are wandering toward the crops, and we guide ourselves back. With thoughts that lead toward peace, mindfulness has a more relaxed quality. It is still aware, still present, but without that same urgency. We can rest more easily. We can enjoy the goodness that is present without needing to do anything about it. Knowing which kind of mindfulness to apply is itself a form of wisdom. If we are too vigilant with wholesome states, we disturb our own peace. We make things harder than they need to be. But if we are too relaxed with unwholesome states, we may find ourselves wandering into the crops before we know it. The middle way, as always, is balance. Knowing when to be watchful, knowing when to rest, trusting ourselves to learn the difference through practice and experience. You might wonder how to know which thoughts are which. How can we tell if a thought leads towards suffering or toward peace? This is not always obvious. Some thoughts are clearly harmful. Others are clearly kind. But many fall somewhere in between, and it can take practice to discern their true nature. The Buddha gave a simple test. When a thought arises, we can ask ourselves a few gentle questions. Does this thought lead to my own well-being, or does it lead to my own harm? Does this thought lead to the well-being of others, or does it lead to their harm? Does this thought bring peace to the mind, or does it stir up agitation? These are not complicated questions. We do not need to analyze our thoughts in great detail or become philosophers of our own minds. We just need to feel into them honestly. When we think this thought, does something relax in us, or does something tighten? Does the mind become more spacious or more contracted? Does the heart open, or does it close? Sometimes the answers are clear right away. A thought of wishing someone well obviously leads toward peace. A thought of plotting revenge obviously leads towards suffering. But sometimes we need to sit with a thought for a moment, to feel its texture, to notice what it does to us. Our own experience is the guide. We learn by paying attention. We learn by noticing the results of different kinds of thinking. Over time, we develop an intuition. We begin to recognize the flavor of thoughts that lead towards suffering. And we begin to recognize the flavor of thoughts that lead toward freedom. It is important to remember that this discernment is not about being perfect. It is not about never having unwholesome thoughts. That is not possible for anyone. As long as we are alive, all kinds of thoughts will arise in the mind. That is simply what minds do. Even the Buddha, even the greatest masters, had thoughts arise in their minds that they did not choose. The difference is in how we respond. Do we get caught up and carried away? Or do we recognize what is happening and respond with wisdom? The practice is not to have only good thoughts. The practice is to recognize what is arising and to respond wisely. This is a gentler and more realistic goal. It does not set us up for failure. It simply asks us to pay attention and to learn. When an unwholesome thought arises, we see it. Oh, there is that thought. We recognize where it leads. This leads towards suffering, and we gently let it go. We do not follow it. We do not feed it. We do not beat ourselves up for having it. We just turn our attention to something else, to the breath, to the body, to something in the present moment. When a wholesome thought arises, we see that too. Oh, there is kindness. There is gratitude. There is peace. And we let it be. We let it do its work in us. We enjoy its presence without grasping at it. We do not try to hold on to it or make it stay. We just appreciate that it is here. This is training the heart. Not forcing it. Not fighting it. Just gently, over time, nourishing what is good and withdrawing energy from what causes harm. There is a beautiful image that captures the nature of certain difficult thoughts. The Buddha once described anger as having a poisoned root and a honeyed tip. Think about what this means. Anger can feel sweet at first. There is something almost pleasurable about it. The energy, the feeling of being right, the sense of power that comes from blaming someone else. But the root is poison. Underneath that sweet surface, anger eats away at our peace. It disturbs our sleep. It damages our relationships. It keeps us trapped in stories of resentment and blame. The more we feed it, the more we suffer. This is true of many unwholesome states. They promise something. They seem to offer some reward. But when we look more deeply, we see that they lead only to more suffering. The practice is to see through the honey to the poison, to recognize that what seems sweet in the moment may have bitter consequences. This is not about suppressing our feelings or pretending they do not exist. It is about seeing clearly. And when we see clearly, we naturally begin to let go of what harms us. As we develop this discernment, something beautiful begins to happen. We start to trust ourselves more, not because we follow every impulse blindly, but because we know we have the wisdom to tell the difference. We know we can recognize what leads to suffering and what leads to peace. We know we have the strength to let go of what harms us and to nourish what heals us. This is a deep kind of confidence. It does not depend on being perfect. It does not depend on never making mistakes. It comes from knowing that we are paying attention. It comes from knowing that we are learning. It comes from the gentle, ongoing work of training the heart. The Thai master Ajahn Chah once said that we practice to find peace in the midst of activity and to be active in the midst of peace. We are not trying to escape our thoughts or our lives. We are learning to meet them with wisdom. We are learning to respond rather than react. We are learning to be at home in our own minds, even when difficult things arise. In your daily life, you might begin to notice this distinction more clearly. When you find yourself caught in a loop of worry, you might recognize it. Oh, this is the kind of thinking that leads to suffering. I have been here before. I know where this goes. and you might gently turn your attention to something else. The breath, the body, the sounds around you, the feeling of your feet on the floor. You do not have to figure out the worry or solve it right now. You just have to stop feeding it with your attention. When you find yourself replaying an argument in your mind, going over what you should have said, building a case against someone, you might notice this too. Oh, this is ill will. This leads towards suffering, and you can choose to let it go. Not because you are suppressing your feelings, but because you see clearly that this path leads nowhere good. When you find yourself feeling grateful or kind, you might recognize that as well. Oh, this is wholesome. This is good. This is the kind of thought worth having. And you can let yourself enjoy it. You do not have to grasp at it or try to make it stay forever. Just appreciate that it is here, like the cowherd sitting peacefully under the tree, watching the cows graze in the open field. Over time, this becomes more natural. The pathways of wholesome thinking become clearer and easier to walk. The pathways of unwholesome thinking become overgrown from lack of use. We are reshaping the garden of the heart, one thought at a time, one gentle choice at a time. The Buddha said that the mind is the forerunner of all actions. What we think shapes what we do. What we do shapes our lives. So tending to our thoughts is not a small thing. It is one of the most important things we can do. But we do it gently. Always gently. We are not at war with ourselves. We are learning to be wise and kind gardeners of our own minds. We are learning which seeds to water and which to let be. We are learning to tend our inner world with the same care we would give to something precious. Because it is precious. This mind, this heart, this one wild and beautiful life. It deserves our attention. It deserves our care. It deserves the same patience we would give to a child learning to walk, or a garden slowly coming into bloom. We are not trying to become someone else. We are simply tending to who we already are. We are clearing away what obscures our natural goodness. We are making space for kindness and wisdom to grow. Now, let us rest for a moment. You do not need to sort through every thought right now. Just be here, gently, in this moment. Rest here for a moment. And when you are ready, we will continue together. We have been learning to notice our thoughts. We have been practicing how to discern which thoughts lead toward peace and which lead toward suffering. We have been tending the garden of the mind, gently nourishing what is wholesome and letting go of what causes harm. All of this is important work. It happens on the level of everyday experience, where the content of our thoughts truly matters. What we think shapes how we feel. What we feel shapes how we act. What we do shapes our lives. But now we come to something deeper, something that can change everything. So far, we have been looking at what our thoughts are saying. Now we are going to look at what thoughts actually are. Have you ever stopped to wonder what a thought really is? We have thousands of them every day. They fill our minds from morning until night. They visit us even in our dreams. And yet, if someone asked us to explain what a thought actually is, most of us would struggle to answer. We know what thoughts feel like. We know they seem to appear from nowhere and disappear just as mysteriously. We know they can be pleasant or unpleasant, helpful or harmful. But what are they made of? Where do they come from? Where do they go when they leave? These are strange questions. Most people never ask them. Most people are so absorbed in what their thoughts are telling them that they never stop to examine the thoughts themselves. But this examination is at the heart of the deeper teachings. When we look not at the content of thought, but at the nature of thought, something remarkable begins to happen. The thoughts that once seemed so solid and powerful start to reveal themselves as something much lighter, much more transparent, much less substantial than we ever imagined. Let us try a little experiment together. Right now, as you listen to these words, thoughts are probably arising in your mind. Maybe thoughts about what is being said. Maybe thoughts about something else entirely. Maybe thoughts about the thoughts you are having. Instead of following these thoughts, instead of getting interested in their content, see if you can simply notice that thinking is happening. And then ask yourself this question: what is a thought? Do not try to answer with words. Do not look for a clever definition. Just look directly at the thought itself. What is this thing? What is it made of? If you look carefully, you might notice something surprising. The thought is hard to find. It seems to be there, and yet when you look directly at it, it begins to dissolve. It is like trying to grab a handful of smoke. The moment you reach for it, it slips through your fingers. This is not a trick. This is the actual nature of thought. Thoughts appear solid when we are lost in them. When we are caught up in their story, they seem as real as rocks. But when we turn and look at them directly, they reveal themselves to be more like mist, more like shadows, more like reflections on the surface of water. A great Tibetan master who lived in the last century offered a beautiful image for understanding this. He said that when a rainbow appears, we see many beautiful colors: reds and oranges and yellows, greens and blues and violets. The rainbow arches across the sky, vivid and striking. It seems so real, so present, so there. Imagine standing in a green valley after a storm has passed. The rain has stopped. The clouds are beginning to part. And there, stretching from one hill to another, is a perfect rainbow. The colors are so bright. The arc is so graceful. You might stand there in wonder, just taking in its beauty. And yet, the master pointed out, a rainbow is not something we can touch. It is not something we can hold in our hands. We cannot make clothing out of it or wear it as an ornament. If we walked toward it hoping to reach it, we would never arrive. It would keep receding, always just beyond us, because it has no solid location. It has no substance we can grasp. Imagine trying to put a rainbow in a box. Imagine trying to hang it on your wall. Imagine trying to give it to someone as a gift. The very idea is absurd. A rainbow cannot be captured or kept. It can only be witnessed while it lasts. The rainbow appears through the coming together of certain conditions. Sunlight and moisture in the air, seen from a particular angle. When those conditions are present, the rainbow appears. When they change, the rainbow fades. It was never a thing in itself. It was always just an appearance, beautiful but insubstantial, real in one sense, but utterly without substance in another. And then the master said something profound. He said that thoughts arise in the mind in just the same way. They appear when certain conditions come together. They seem vivid and real while they are here, but they have no solid existence. They have no weight, no substance, no permanence. They are like rainbows in the sky of the mind. Sit with this for a moment. Let it sink in. All those thoughts that trouble you, all those worries that keep you awake at night, all those judgments and criticisms and fears, they feel so solid. They feel so important. They feel like they are telling you something absolutely true about yourself and your life. But what if they are more like rainbows? What if they are just appearances, arising when conditions come together, dissolving when conditions change? What if they have no more substance than colors in the sky after a storm? This does not mean our thoughts are meaningless. On the relative level, as we explored before, the content of our thoughts matters very much. Kind thoughts lead to kind actions. Harmful thoughts can lead to harmful actions. We still want to tend the garden carefully, but on a deeper level, recognizing the rainbow nature of thoughts can bring tremendous freedom. When we see that thoughts are not as solid as they appear, they lose their power to control us. They lose their ability to push us around. We can still notice them. We can still work with them wisely, but we no longer have to be enslaved by them. The Tibetan master continued his teaching with words that cut right to the heart of the matter. He said there is no logical reason why thoughts should have so much power over us. There is no reason why we should be enslaved by them. Think about this. A thought is little more than nothing. It is a tiny ripple of energy in the mind. It has no weight. It takes up no space. It lasts only a moment before being replaced by the next one. If you tried to put a thought on a scale, it would weigh nothing. If you tried to measure its size, you would find nothing to measure. And yet, these tiny, weightless, momentary appearances run our lives. They tell us what to do, and we obey. They tell us what to worry about, and we worry. They tell us who we are, and we believe them. They are like little dictators, issuing commands from morning until night. Go here. Do this. Think about that. Remember this problem. Worry about that situation. Compare yourself to that person. You are not good enough. You need to do more. Something bad might happen. On and on and on, the commands keep coming. And most of the time, we follow them without question. We do not even realize we are being bossed around. We do not notice that we have given all our power to these tiny, insubstantial wisps of mental activity. The dictators are so familiar, so constant, that we mistake their voices for our own. We think we are choosing to think these thoughts, when really they are just appearing on their own and we are following along. But the moment we turn and look at them directly, something shifts. These powerful dictators reveal themselves to be nothing but smoke and mirrors. They have no real authority. They have no substance. They have no power that we do not give them. They are just appearances in the mind, no more solid than rainbows in the sky. Once we recognize this, the Master said, the mind will no longer have the power to deceive us. But as long as we take our thoughts as real, as solid, as true, they will continue to torment us. They will continue to run the show. They will continue to boss us around mercilessly, as they have been doing for as long as we can remember. This teaching is not asking us to get rid of our thoughts. That is not possible. As long as we are alive, thoughts will arise. That is simply what minds do. The teaching is asking us to see thoughts clearly, to recognize their true nature, to stop being fooled by their apparent solidity. There is a question we can carry with us as we go about our days. Whenever a thought arises that seems particularly solid, particularly important, particularly true, we can ask ourselves this: what is this thought really? We are not looking for a verbal answer. We are simply turning our attention to the thought itself. We are looking at it instead of through it. We are examining its nature instead of getting lost in its content. And when we do this, again and again, something begins to change. The thoughts do not stop coming, but their grip loosens. Their power fades. We start to see them for what they are: passing appearances, rainbows in the mind, here for a moment, then gone. This is what the ancient teachings call seeing into the empty nature of thought. The word empty here does not mean meaningless or worthless. It means empty of the solidity we imagine, empty of the permanence we project onto them, empty of the independent existence they seem to have. A rainbow is empty in this sense. It is not nothing. We can see it. We can appreciate its beauty. But it is empty of substance. We cannot grab it or keep it or build anything on it. Our thoughts are the same. They are not nothing. They arise. They have effects. We can work with them wisely, but they are empty of the solidity we give them. They are empty of the power we grant them. When we really see this, something in us relaxes. The Buddha spoke of this in many ways. He said that all things arise from conditions and pass away when conditions change. Nothing has a fixed, permanent, independent existence. Everything is more fluid, more process-like, more dreamlike than it appears. This includes our thoughts. This includes our emotions. This includes everything we experience. It is all arising and passing, appearing and dissolving, like waves on the ocean, like clouds in the sky, like rainbows after rain. Let us return to the experience of sitting quietly and watching the mind. When we first begin this practice, thoughts seem very solid. They come with force. They demand attention. They carry us away before we know what has happened. We spend most of our time lost in thought, following wherever they lead. But as we practice, something shifts. We begin to catch thoughts a little earlier. We begin to see them arise before they carry us off. And in that seeing, something remarkable becomes apparent. Thoughts are amazingly light. They are like wisps of cloud. They are like soap bubbles floating past. When we are lost in them, they seem like mountains we cannot move. But when we actually look at them, they are more like feathers. They have almost no weight at all. This is not just a nice idea. This is something we can actually experience. When we are present enough, still enough, clear enough, we can feel the lightness of thought. We can sense how insubstantial it really is. One moment, there is nothing. Then a thought arises. It seems to come from nowhere. It stays for a brief moment, flickering like a candle flame. And then it is gone, leaving nothing behind. No trace, no residue, just space. And then another thought comes, and another, arising and passing, like bubbles forming and popping, like sparkles of light on moving water. Why is this seeing so liberating? Because most of our suffering comes from taking thoughts too seriously. We believe what they tell us. We treat them as though they are reporting the truth about reality. We let them define who we are, what we can do, what is possible for us. We give them a power they do not actually have. A thought says, "I am not good enough," and we believe it. We feel the weight of it pressing down on us. We shape our lives around it. We hold back from things we might enjoy. We do not try things we might be good at. We carry this thought with us like a heavy stone, when really it is lighter than air. A thought says, "That person does not like me," and we believe it. We change how we act around them. We feel hurt and defensive. We imagine conversations and slights that may never have happened. We build a whole story out of a single passing thought, and then we suffer from the story we have built. A thought says, "Something terrible might happen," and we believe it. We worry. We plan for disasters that may never come. We lose sleep. We miss the peace of the present moment. We sacrifice today's joy for tomorrow's imagined fears. But what if we could see these thoughts for what they are? What if we could recognize them as rainbows, as passing appearances, as insubstantial arisings in the mind? Would they still have the same power over us? When we really see the empty nature of a thought, something softens. The thought may still be there, but it no longer grips us so tightly. We can see it for what it is. It is just a thought, just a small arising in the vast sky of awareness. Here for a moment, then gone. No need to build a life around it. No need to let it define us. No need to treat it as the final truth about anything. There is a traditional image that captures this beautifully. It speaks of the mind as being like the sky, and thoughts as being like clouds that pass through it. The sky is always there. It is vast and open and unchanging. It stretches in every direction, without boundary or edge. It has been there since before we were born. It will be there long after we are gone. It simply is, perfect and complete, needing nothing. Clouds come and go. Sometimes they are light and wispy, drifting lazily across the blue. Sometimes they are dark and heavy, covering everything in grey. Sometimes they build into great towering shapes. Sometimes they gather into storms. Sometimes they part to reveal the sun. But no matter what the clouds do, the sky itself is never disturbed. The sky does not become smaller when clouds appear. It does not get damaged by storms. It does not get better when the clouds clear. It does not prefer sunny days to rainy days. It simply allows everything to pass through, without resistance, without grasping, without complaint. Our true nature is like this sky. It is aware, open, and spacious. It is always present, always clear, always at peace. Thoughts and emotions are like the clouds. They pass through this awareness. Sometimes they are pleasant. Sometimes they are painful. Sometimes they seem to fill the whole mind, like a sky covered completely in grey. But the awareness that knows them is never disturbed. It is never damaged by even the most difficult thought. It is never stained by even the most painful emotion. It is simply there, allowing everything to arise and pass, just as the sky allows clouds to come and go. When we identify with our thoughts, we are like someone who has forgotten the sky and thinks they are a cloud. We feel ourselves being blown about. We feel ourselves changing shape. We feel heavy and dark, or light and airy, depending on what kind of cloud we seem to be. But when we recognize our true nature, when we see that we are the sky and not the clouds, something shifts. We are no longer at the mercy of every passing thought. We can watch them come and go with a kind of gentle interest. We can appreciate them, learn from them, but not be controlled by them. As you go about your daily life, you might experiment with this seeing. When a thought arises, especially one that feels heavy or troubling, see if you can pause for a moment. Instead of diving into its content, instead of believing its story, simply look at the thought itself. What is this? What is it made of? Where did it come from? Where is it going? You do not need to answer these questions with your thinking mind. Just hold them lightly. Let them turn your attention toward the nature of the thought rather than its content. You might notice that the thought begins to lose its solidity. It might fade more quickly than usual. It might reveal itself to be lighter, more transparent, more rainbow-like than you expected. This is not about suppressing thoughts or pretending they do not exist. It is about seeing them clearly. When we see clearly, we are no longer fooled. When we are no longer fooled, we are free. The great teachers remind us that this freedom is always available. It is not something we have to create or achieve. It is simply what remains when we stop being deceived by the apparent solidity of our thoughts. We do not have to wait until we have no more difficult thoughts. We do not have to perfect our minds before we can taste this freedom. Right now, in this very moment, we can turn and look at whatever thought is arising. We can ask, what is this, really? And in that looking, in that questioning, something opens up. Space opens up. Lightness opens up. The possibility of not being pushed around by every passing mental event opens up. This is the gift of understanding the rainbow nature of thought. Not that thoughts stop, but that they no longer imprison us. Not that the mind becomes empty, but that we see the emptiness that was always there. Not that we escape our experience, but that we meet it with clear seeing and an open heart. Now, let us pause for a moment. Rest in this space. And when you are ready, we will continue this journey together. We have been exploring the nature of thought. We have seen how thoughts are like rainbows, appearing vivid and real but without solid substance. We have glimpsed the possibility of watching them arise and pass without being controlled by them. But thoughts do not travel alone. They bring companions with them. And these companions often have more power to move us than the thoughts themselves. We are speaking now of emotions, the feelings that color our experience, the moods that shape our days, the currents of joy and sorrow, fear and love, anger and peace that flow through our lives. Thoughts and emotions are deeply connected. They arise together, influence each other, and create the texture of our inner world. Understanding this connection is essential if we want to find real peace. Have you ever noticed how quickly a single thought can change how you feel? One moment, you are at ease. Your mind is relatively quiet. Your body is relaxed. And then a thought appears. Maybe a memory. Maybe an image of someone. maybe just a few words drifting through your mind. And suddenly, everything shifts. Your mood changes. Your body responds. An emotion has arrived, seemingly out of nowhere. This happens constantly, though we rarely notice it. Thoughts trigger emotions, and emotions in turn give rise to more thoughts. They are like dance partners, moving together, each one responding to the other. The Buddha observed this connection very closely. He spoke of how the mind and body work together, how mental states give rise to physical sensations, and how our inner world shapes our experience of everything around us. What happens in the mind does not stay in the mind. It ripples outward into the body, into our actions, into our whole lives. Let us look at this more closely. Think of someone you love deeply. Maybe a family member, maybe a dear friend, maybe someone who has been kind to you in your life. Just bring their face to mind. See them as clearly as you can. Notice what happens inside you. For most people, just thinking of someone they love brings a softening in the chest, a warmth, a feeling of openness and tenderness. The body relaxes a little, the heart feels lighter. And yet, this person is not here. You are not actually seeing them or touching them or hearing their voice. All that is happening is a thought, an image in the mind, a memory. And this small, insubstantial thing, this rainbow-like appearance, has changed how your whole body feels. Now think of someone who has hurt you, someone who has treated you unkindly or unfairly, someone who has caused you pain. Notice what happens now. For most people, just thinking of such a person brings a tightening somewhere in the body, maybe in the chest, maybe in the belly, maybe in the jaw or shoulders. There might be heat. There might be a sense of contraction, of closing down. An uncomfortable feeling arises. Again, this person is not actually here. They are not doing anything to you right now. There is only a thought, only an image in the mind. And yet, the body responds as though the person was standing right in front of you. The emotion arises as though the situation were happening again, right now. This is the power of the connection between thought and emotion. A single thought can open the heart or close it. A single memory can bring peace or stir up old pain. We do not even need to be in the presence of anything real. The thought alone is enough. This is both humbling and freeing to understand. It is humbling because it shows us how easily we can be moved by mere thoughts. We like to believe we are rational beings, making choices based on what is actually happening. But so much of the time, we are reacting to images in our own minds. We are being stirred up by memories and fantasies that have no more substance than dreams. It is freeing because it shows us where the real work lies. If our emotions were caused directly by the world outside us, we would be helpless. We would have no choice but to feel whatever circumstances forced upon us. But if our emotions are triggered by thoughts, and if we can learn to see thoughts clearly, then something changes. A space opens up. A possibility appears. We cannot always control what happens in the world, but we can learn to see what happens in our minds. And in that seeing, a kind of freedom becomes possible. There is a story about someone who discovered this connection in a very direct way. This person was spending time in retreat, away from the busyness of ordinary life, practicing meditation and watching the movements of their own mind. It was a quiet time, a time for stepping back from the rush of daily activities, a time for looking inward with patience and care. The retreat center was peaceful. There was time to sit quietly, time to walk slowly, time to simply be, without all the usual demands and distractions. It was the perfect environment for noticing things that usually slip by unobserved. During this retreat, a memory kept arising. It was the memory of a disagreement with some people. Nothing dramatic. Just one of those situations where people see things differently and feelings get hurt. The kind of thing that happens in families, in workplaces, in communities, everywhere. A difference of opinion that somehow became personal. Words exchanged that left a sting. But even though this person was far away from that situation, even though nothing was actually happening, even though the disagreement was in the past, the memory kept coming back. And every time it did, something happened inside. The thought would appear, the image of those people, the memory of what was said, the sense of having been treated unfairly. And immediately, within a single breath, there would be a tightening in the body, a flush of heat rising, a feeling of irritation or frustration. The emotions would arise as quickly as the thought, as reliably as a bell rings when it is struck. At first, this person just noticed this pattern with some surprise. Oh, there is that thought again. There is that feeling again. They watched it happen several times over the course of days, curious about how reliably the thought triggered the emotion. It was like watching a machine at work. Put in this input, get that output. Every single time. And then they tried something interesting. Instead of waiting for the thought to appear on its own, they deliberately brought it to mind. They intentionally thought of those people, that situation, that disagreement. They did this as an experiment, just to see what would happen. What happened next was fascinating. Even though the thought was chosen on purpose, even though this person knew exactly what they were doing, even though they were watching the whole process with clear awareness, the emotion still arose. The body still tightened. The irritation still appeared. It was as if the mind could not help itself. The pathway from that thought to that emotion was so well worn, so deeply grooved, that it happened automatically, regardless of intention. This was a profound teaching. It showed, in the clearest possible way, that emotions are conditioned. They arise from causes. When the cause is present, the emotion follows. It is not personal. It is not a moral failing. It is not a sign that we are doing something wrong. It is simply how the mind works. It is simply the nature of this human experience. And because it was seen so clearly, because this person watched the whole process with such careful attention, something began to loosen. The emotion still arose, but it no longer had quite the same grip. It was seen for what it was, a conditioned response, an automatic pattern, not the truth about the situation, not a command that had to be obeyed, just an old habit playing itself out one more time. The Buddha spoke about this conditional nature of all experience. He taught that things arise because of causes and conditions. When the conditions are present, the result follows. When the conditions change, the result changes too. This is true of emotions. They do not appear from nowhere. They do not arise without cause. They come into being when certain conditions come together. A thought arises, and an emotion follows. A memory appears, and a feeling responds. This is not random. It is not mysterious. It is simply cause and effect, playing out in the landscape of the mind. Understanding this can bring great relief. When we do not understand it, we tend to take our emotions very personally. We think, I am an angry person. I am an anxious person. I am someone who gets sad easily. We identify with our emotional patterns as though they define who we are. But when we see that emotions arise from conditions, something shifts. We begin to see that emotions are not who we are. They are events that happen. They are weather that passes through. They are responses to causes, not fixed features of our being. This does not mean emotions are unimportant. They are part of our experience. They color our lives. They can be pleasant or painful, helpful or harmful. But they are not permanent. They are not solid. And they are not our deepest identity. One of the most helpful things we can do is learn to notice what triggers our emotions. Often, there is a thought that comes just before the feeling. A memory, an image, a few words passing through the mind. This trigger thought is like a match that lights a fire. Without the match, there would be no flame. And even a tiny match can start a very large fire. If we can begin to notice these trigger thoughts, we gain something precious. We start to see the process as it unfolds. We catch the match before the fire spreads. And in that catching, we have a chance to respond differently. This takes practice. Emotions can arise very quickly. By the time we notice we are feeling something, the thought that triggered it may already be long gone. We find ourselves in the middle of an emotional storm without any idea how we got there. But with patience and gentleness, we can learn to trace back. We can ask ourselves, what was I just thinking? What image or memory passed through my mind a moment ago? What triggered this feeling? Sometimes we will find an answer. Oh, I was thinking about that conversation. That is why I suddenly feel anxious. Oh, I remembered that unkind thing someone said. That is why my mood shifted. And sometimes we will not find an answer. The trigger will have come and gone too quickly. That is okay too. We are not trying to be perfect detectives. We are simply learning to pay closer attention to the inner world. It is important to approach this exploration with kindness. We are not investigating our triggers so that we can judge ourselves for having them. We are not looking for proof that something is wrong with us. We are simply getting to know ourselves better with the same gentle curiosity we might bring to a garden or a landscape. Oh, this is how my mind works. When I think of that, I feel this. When this memory arises, that emotion follows. How interesting. How human. How completely normal. Everyone has trigger thoughts. Everyone has patterns of emotion that have been conditioned over a lifetime. This is not a flaw. It is simply the nature of being a human being with a mind and a heart. A wise teacher once said that we are not practicing to prevent thinking. We are practicing to recognize thinking whenever it arises. And we might add that we are not practicing to prevent feeling. We are practicing to recognize feeling, to see it clearly, to understand how it comes into being and how it passes away. The more we understand this connection between thoughts and emotions, the more compassion we naturally feel. Compassion for ourselves, because we see that we are not choosing to suffer. We are simply caught in conditioned patterns that arose through no fault of our own. Compassion for others, because we see that they too are caught in their own patterns, their own triggers, their own automatic responses. When someone acts out of anger, we can see that a thought triggered that anger. Something arose in their mind, and the emotion followed like night follows day. They did not choose to be angry any more than we choose the weather. They are suffering the results of conditions. This does not mean we excuse harmful behavior. Actions have consequences, and we still need to protect ourselves and others from harm. But we can hold even difficult situations with more understanding. We can see that everyone is doing the best they can with the mind they have, with the patterns they have inherited, with the conditions they face. The Buddha taught that all beings want to be happy. All beings want to avoid suffering. Even when people act in ways that cause harm, they are trying, in some confused way, to find happiness or escape pain. Understanding this does not make harmful actions okay, but it softens our hearts. It helps us respond with wisdom rather than react with more anger. There is another gift that comes from understanding this connection. We can begin to use it wisely. If certain thoughts reliably trigger difficult emotions, we can learn to notice those thoughts and not follow them so quickly. We can see the match before it lights the fire. We do not have to add fuel. We can let the thought pass without feeding it with our attention. And if certain thoughts reliably bring peace and openness, we can learn to cultivate them. We can intentionally bring to mind thoughts of gratitude, of loving kindness, of appreciation for what is good in our lives. These thoughts will trigger their own emotions: warmth, ease, contentment, joy. This is not about pretending or forcing ourselves to feel things we do not feel. It is about understanding how the mind works and using that understanding skillfully. If we are going to think anyway, we might as well think thoughts that lead toward peace. The Buddha taught practices specifically designed to cultivate wholesome emotions. Practices of loving kindness, where we deliberately bring to mind the wish for ourselves and others to be happy, to be peaceful, to be free from suffering. Practices of compassion, where we open our hearts to suffering, with the wish for it to be relieved. Practices of appreciative joy, where we celebrate the happiness and success of others. Practices of gratitude, where we call to mind what we have received and let ourselves feel thankful. These practices work because of the connection between thought and emotion. When we think thoughts of kindness, kindness arises in the heart. When we think thoughts of gratitude, gratitude fills us. When we bring to mind the wish for someone to be happy, we feel that happiness ourselves. We are using the natural workings of the mind to move ourselves toward greater well-being. This is one of the beautiful things about understanding how the mind works. The same mechanism that can trap us in cycles of worry and resentment can also lift us into peace and love. It all depends on what we feed our attention. It all depends on which pathways we choose to walk. As you go through your days, you might begin to notice this dance between thoughts and emotions. When you feel a shift in your mood, see if you can pause and look back. Was there a thought that came just before? Was there a memory, an image, a worry that passed through your mind? You do not have to analyze it deeply. Just notice, oh, that thought seems to have triggered this feeling. How interesting. When you find yourself in a difficult emotional state, see if you can identify what you were thinking about. Sometimes just seeing the trigger clearly is enough to take some of the charge out of the emotion. It is like discovering that the monster in the dark is just a coat hanging on a chair. Once you see it clearly, it loses its power to frighten. And when you want to cultivate more positive states, experiment with bringing good thoughts to mind. Think of someone you love. Remember a time when you felt grateful. Recall an act of kindness you witnessed or received. Notice what happens in your body and heart as you do this. You may find that you have more power to shape your inner weather than you ever realized. We are not at the mercy of our emotions. This is one of the most liberating things we can learn. Emotions arise from conditions. When we understand the conditions, we have some influence over the process. Not complete control. We cannot simply decide to never feel sad or afraid or hurt. Emotions have a life of their own, and they will come whether we want them to or not. But we have some influence, some space to work with what arises, some freedom to respond rather than just react blindly. This is the gift of awareness. This is the fruit of paying attention to our inner lives. We see how the mind works, and in seeing, we are a little less pushed around by it. We see the connection between thought and emotion, and in seeing, we find room to breathe. We find room to choose. We find room to be free. The ancient teachers called this wisdom. Not wisdom as knowledge stored in books, but wisdom as clear seeing. The ability to see what is actually happening, moment by moment, in the unfolding of our experience. This wisdom is available to all of us. It simply requires that we pay attention, that we look at our own minds with curiosity and kindness, that we become students of our own hearts. Now, let us pause for a moment. Take a gentle breath and let your body relax. And when you are ready, we will continue. We have been exploring the hidden currents that flow between thoughts and emotions. We have seen how a single thought can trigger a cascade of feeling, and how understanding this connection can bring us greater freedom. But there is another step we must take. Noticing our emotions is important. Understanding where they come from is valuable. But something else is needed if we are to find real peace. That something is acceptance. This word can be easily misunderstood. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It does not mean giving up. It does not mean pretending we are happy when we are not. It does not mean allowing harmful situations to continue. Acceptance, in the way we are using it here, simply means acknowledging what is present. It means being willing to feel what we are actually feeling. It means dropping our resistance to this moment, just as it is. And this, it turns out, makes all the difference. There is a simple truth that runs through all the ancient teachings. Whatever we resist persists. Whatever we fight against grows stronger. The more we push away our experience, the more tightly it grips us. Think about a time when you tried not to feel something. Maybe you were sad and told yourself you should not be sad. Maybe you were afraid and tried to push the fear away. Maybe you were angry and judged yourself for feeling that anger. What happened? For most of us, the resistance makes things worse. The sadness does not go away. It goes underground. It becomes a dull heaviness that colors everything. The fear does not disappear. It becomes anxiety, a constant background hum. The anger does not dissolve. It becomes resentment, hardening in the heart. This is the cost of non-acceptance. We spend enormous energy trying not to feel what we feel. And in the end, we feel it anyway, only now with an extra layer of struggle on top. The Buddha pointed to this truth when he spoke of the two arrows. He said that when we experience something painful, it is like being struck by an arrow. This is the first arrow. It hurts. There is no avoiding it. Pain is part of life. But then, he said, we often shoot ourselves with a second arrow. This second arrow is our resistance to the first. It is our anger that we are in pain. It is our fear that the pain will never end. It is our judgment that we should not be hurting, that something is wrong with us for feeling this way. The first arrow is unavoidable. Life brings difficulty. But the second arrow is optional. We add it ourselves, and it often causes more suffering than the first. Acceptance is learning not to shoot the second arrow. It is feeling the first arrow fully, without adding resistance. Let us look at how this works with emotions. The first step, as we have discussed, is recognition. We need to know what we are feeling. This sounds simple, but it is not always easy. Emotions can be confusing. They can blend into each other. They can hide beneath the surface, influencing us without our awareness. Some people find it quite difficult to name what they are feeling. They know something is happening inside, some discomfort or unease, but they cannot quite identify what it is. They might go through entire days feeling off without knowing why. Others might think they know what they are feeling, but they are actually mislabeling it. They call something sadness when it is really loneliness. They call something anger when it is really hurt. They call something anxiety when it is really excitement. Getting clear on what is actually present is important. When we name something accurately, something shifts. The emotion becomes less overwhelming. It becomes something we can work with instead of something that controls us. A wise meditation teacher put this beautifully. He said that when the mind is thinking or wandering, just be aware of it. Thinking is a natural activity of the mind. You are doing well if you are aware that the mind is thinking. The same is true of emotions. When the heart is feeling something, just be aware of it. Feeling is a natural activity of the heart. You are doing well if you are aware of what you are feeling. That awareness itself is a form of wisdom. There is a story about someone who learned this lesson in a surprising way. This person was on retreat at a quiet place in the countryside. The days were spent in meditation, walking slowly, eating in silence, watching the movements of the mind and heart. One day, a heaviness settled in. A grey feeling, a sense of being weighed down. This person thought, I am feeling sad. And with that thought came other thoughts. Why am I sad? I should not be sad. I came here to find peace, and instead I am sad. Something must be wrong. This went on for some time. The heaviness persisted. The thoughts about the heaviness made it worse. There was resistance. There was struggle. There was a tightness around the whole experience. Finally, in a moment of clarity, this person decided to look more carefully. What is this feeling, really? Not what I think it is. Not what I have labeled it, but what is it actually? And upon closer inspection, something became clear. This was not sadness. Not exactly. It was more like general unhappiness, a kind of dissatisfaction, a vague sense of things not being right. Sadness and unhappiness might seem like the same thing, but they are subtly different. Sadness has a quality of depth to it. Unhappiness is more like a surface disturbance. When this person recognized the difference and named the feeling accurately, something released. Oh, this is unhappiness. Just unhappiness. Nothing deeper. Nothing more dramatic. With that accurate recognition, the resistance dropped away. The feeling was still there, but it was no longer being amplified by the struggle against it. It could simply be present. And because it could be present, it could also pass, which, in time, it did. The second step, after recognition, is acceptance. And this is where we often get stuck. Even when we know what we are feeling, we often do not want to feel it. We have ideas about how we should feel. We have judgments about certain emotions being good and others being bad. We have a deep habit of pushing away what is unpleasant and grasping at what is pleasant. But here is what the wise ones have discovered. Our attitude toward our experience is often more problematic than the experience itself. The same meditation teacher who spoke about awareness put this very directly. He said that if you feel disturbed by thoughts, or if you have a reaction or judgment about them, there is a problem with your attitude. The wandering mind is not the problem. Your attitude that it should not be wandering is the problem. This is true for emotions as well. Fear itself is not necessarily a problem. It is a natural human experience. But our reaction to fear, our judgment that we should not be afraid, our shame about feeling afraid, that adds suffering. Anger itself is not necessarily a problem, but our resistance to anger, our belief that good people do not get angry, that creates knots. Acceptance means letting go of the argument with reality. It means allowing this moment to be as it is, including whatever emotions are present. It means dropping the should and the should not, and simply being with what is. There is another story that illustrates this beautifully. Someone was practicing at a monastery in a busy part of the world. The monastery itself was old and peaceful inside its walls. Ancient trees provided shade. A small garden offered a place for walking meditation. Everything within the grounds spoke of quietude. But just outside the monastery walls, daily life continued. The world does not pause just because people inside are seeking stillness. This person's small room happened to be near a village on one side, where the sounds of daily chores would drift in each morning. On the other side, some construction was happening within the monastery grounds. So there sat this practitioner, hoping for silent meditation, while the sounds of ordinary life continued all around. At first, there was frustration. The mind filled with thoughts like, how can I possibly practice with all this going on? I came here for peace, and instead I hear all this activity. The mind began to complain. The body tensed. And interestingly, the more the sounds were resisted, the louder and more intrusive they seemed to become. This went on for some days. Frustration, resistance, struggle. The sounds continued. The inner difficulty grew. Then something shifted. In a moment of tired honesty, When the resistance had simply worn itself out, this person looked directly at what was happening inside. Not at the sounds outside, but at the experience within. And what was seen was very clear. This is complaining mind. That was all. A simple, clear recognition. Oh, this is what the mind does when it does not accept what is present. This is the mind creating its own difficulty on top of the sounds. With that simple recognition, something released. The sounds did not stop. Nothing changed in the external world, but the relationship to it all transformed completely. The struggle dropped away. The resistance softened. There were just sounds now. Just part of this moment, like the breath, like the heartbeat, like the light coming through the window. From that point on, the practice became much easier. Not because circumstances changed, but because acceptance arrived. The same sounds that had seemed so difficult became simply sounds. The mind could rest. Peace was found, not by escaping the world, but by no longer fighting it. How do we know when we are not accepting what is present? There is a simple sign. Struggle. Whenever we feel like we are struggling, whenever there is a sense of fighting against our experience, that is a signal. It tells us that somewhere, in some way, we are not accepting what is here. This is actually useful information. We can use the feeling of struggle as feedback. Oh, I am struggling. That means I am resisting something. What am I not accepting right now? Sometimes the answer is obvious. We are not accepting a difficult emotion. We are not accepting a painful situation. We are not accepting something about ourselves. Sometimes the answer is more subtle. We might be resisting something so quietly that we did not even notice. A slight tension, a background unease, a vague sense of things being not quite right. But the struggle always points to the same thing. Somewhere there is non-acceptance, and somewhere there is an opportunity to soften. Acceptance does not mean we have to like what is present. This is an important point. We can accept that we are feeling fear without liking the fear. We can accept that we are in a difficult situation without enjoying it. Acceptance is not approval. It is simply acknowledgement. It is simply the willingness to be with what is. In fact, acceptance often makes room for things to change. When we stop fighting our experience, energy is freed up. We are no longer spending all our resources on resistance. We can begin to respond more wisely. We can take action if action is needed. We can ask for help if help would be useful. We can simply wait if waiting is what the situation requires. Acceptance is the ground from which wise action grows. It is not passivity. It is presence. It is being fully here, with things as they are, so that we can see clearly what, if anything, needs to be done. There is one more story worth sharing here. Someone was on retreat at a meditation center. At mealtimes, the food was served buffet style. People would walk along a table, serving themselves from various dishes. One day, there was a dish that this person particularly liked. Something delicious. And next to the dish was a small sign that said, "Moderation, please." Now, this person understood what the sign meant. The dish was limited. Everyone should take only a reasonable portion so there would be enough to go around. But in the moment, Standing there with the serving spoon in hand, a different kind of reasoning arose. Well, what exactly is moderate? Surely a little more than this would still be moderate. And a little more than that. And so, knowing it was not quite right, this person took more than a fair share. Not a huge amount, but definitely more than moderate. Walking away from the table, there was a feeling, something not quite settled, a slight discomfort. At first, this person tried to ignore it, tried to justify the action. It was not that much. Others probably took more. It is not a big deal. But the feeling persisted. And finally, this person looked at what was actually happening. Oh, there is desire here. That is what drove the action. And now there is something else. What is this? It feels like shame. A little embarrassment at having given in to greed. Just seeing it clearly, naming it accurately, brought relief. Yes, there was desire. Yes, the desire was followed. Yes, there are uncomfortable feelings as a result. This is how the mind works. This is how actions have consequences. Nothing terrible. Just something to notice. Just something to learn from. The discomfort passed. What remained was a little more self-knowledge, a little more humility, a little more understanding of how desire operates and what it feels like when we act from it. Sometimes we do not recognize or accept our emotions because they are painful. The heart closes down to protect itself. It is like a hand pulling back from a flame. This is natural. It is a kind of wisdom, actually. If something is too overwhelming, too intense, too much for us to bear in the moment, we need to be able to step back. We need to create some distance. We need to not be flooded and swept away. The heart knows how to protect itself. This is something that developed over a long time. It is built into us. When pain threatens to overwhelm us, something closes. A wall goes up. We go numb for a while. This gives us time to gather our resources, to find our footing, to prepare to meet what is difficult. But sometimes this protection becomes a habit. We close down not just to overwhelming things, but to all difficult emotions. We live defensively, always trying to avoid feeling what we do not want to feel. We become experts at distraction, at denial, at keeping ourselves busy so we do not have to face what is inside. The cost of this is high. We miss a lot of our lives. We become numb, not just to pain, but also to joy. The same walls that keep out suffering also keep out love. The same numbness that protects us from sorrow also prevents us from feeling fully alive. So we need to find a balance. We need to learn to open to our emotions, to feel them fully, to let them move through us like weather moving through the sky. And we also need to respect our limits. We need to know when to step back, when to take a break, when to get support from others. This is especially true for old pain, for traumas that may have left deep marks on the heart. These need to be approached gently, slowly, with great care, not forced open before we are ready, not pushed through with brute determination, but met with patience and kindness, perhaps with the help of a skilled guide or a trusted friend, and allowed to heal in their own time, at their own pace. The Buddha compared this to the care we would give to a wound. We would not ignore it and hope it goes away. But we also would not poke at it constantly or rip off the bandage before it was ready. We would tend to it with wisdom and patience, giving it what it needs to heal. As you go through your days, you might notice moments when you are resisting your experience. Maybe you wake up feeling tired and immediately start arguing with the tiredness. I should not be tired. I got enough sleep. What is wrong with me? Notice the resistance. Notice the struggle. And see if you can soften into acceptance. I am tired. This is what tiredness feels like. It is here, right now. Let me just be with it, just for this moment, without fighting. Maybe you are in a conversation and you feel irritation rising. And immediately, you start judging yourself for being irritated. I should not feel this way. This is not very spiritual of me. Notice the second arrow and see if you can simply accept the irritation. It is here. It arose from conditions, as we explored before. Let me feel it, let me know it, without adding judgment. Acceptance is not something we do once and then are done with. It is an ongoing practice, a continuous softening, a repeated willingness to be with what is. And each time we accept, even for a moment, something eases. The struggle drops away, even a little. The peace that is always present beneath the surface begins to show itself. The ancient teachings promise that this acceptance leads somewhere beautiful. When we stop fighting our experience, when we allow things to be as they are, we discover that we are bigger than any emotion. We are vaster than any thought. We are the awareness in which all of this arises and passes. We are the ocean, not the waves. This does not mean we become cold or distant from our experience. Quite the opposite. Acceptance allows us to feel more fully, not less. It allows us to be intimate with our lives instead of always holding them at arm's length. The Buddha taught that there is a peace that comes from acceptance, not a peace that depends on everything being perfect, not a peace that requires certain conditions to be met, but a peace that is available in any moment, whenever we stop struggling and simply allow what is. This peace is your birthright. It is always here. It does not need to be created or achieved. It simply needs to be uncovered. And acceptance is how we uncover it. Now, let us pause and rest. Take a gentle breath. And when you are ready, we will continue this journey together. We have traveled far together on this journey. We have explored the connection between thoughts and emotions, those hidden currents that shape our inner weather. And we have practiced the gentle art of acceptance, learning to be with our experience rather than fighting against it. Now we come to another teaching, the one that ties everything together, the one that offers the deepest freedom. It is the teaching of non-identification, learning to experience our thoughts and emotions fully, completely, while not taking them to be who we are. This teaching is like a key that unlocks a door we may not have known was there. On the other side of that door is a spaciousness we have always longed for, a peace that does not depend on circumstances, a freedom that nothing can take away. There is a way we usually relate to what arises in our minds. It is so automatic that we rarely notice we are doing it. It is woven into the very language we speak. When happiness comes, we say, I am happy. When sadness visits, we say, I am sad. When fear arises, we say, I am afraid. When peace settles in, we say, I am peaceful. Do you hear the pattern? I am this, I am that. We take each passing state and make it into our identity. We become the emotion. We are the thought. We fuse with whatever is arising, as if we and it were one and the same thing. This is so natural, so built into how we speak and think, that it seems like the only possibility. Of course I am sad when sadness is here. What else would I be? How else could I describe it? But the ancient teachers noticed something important. This identification, this I am, creates a kind of trap. When we become our emotions, we are completely at their mercy. When anger arises and we think I am angry, we are anger. There is no space between us and the feeling. No room to breathe. No freedom to respond with wisdom. We are swallowed whole. But there is another way to relate to what arises. A gentler way. A wiser way. Instead of I am angry, we can notice anger is present. Instead of I am afraid, we can observe fear is visiting right now. Instead of I am sad, we can recognize sadness is moving through. This might seem like a small shift, just a change in words, but it opens up something vast. It is like stepping back from a painting to see the whole picture. It is like realizing that you are not the weather, but the sky through which the weather passes. Let us feel into this difference together. Imagine that anger has arisen in you. Something has happened and there is heat in the body, tension in the chest, energy wanting to move. In the usual way, you would think, I am angry. And in that moment, you become the anger. You are identified with it. You see through its eyes. You think its thoughts. You feel its urgency. There is no separation between you and the emotion. Now imagine the same situation, but with a different relationship. Anger has arisen. You notice it. You feel the heat, the tension, the energy. But instead of I am angry, there is simply, oh, this is what anger feels like. This is how anger appears in the body. This is the texture of anger, the flavor of it. Can you sense the difference? In the second way, you are not the anger. You are the awareness that notices anger. You are the space in which anger appears. The anger is there, yes. You are not denying it or pushing it away. But you are not lost in it either. You are present with it, alongside it, larger than it. This is non-identification. This is freedom. The Buddha spoke of this in a beautiful teaching. He said that these states, not having been, come into being, and having been, they vanish. Read that again slowly. These states, not having been, come into being, and having been, they vanish. Before the anger arose, it was not there. Then conditions came together, and it appeared. It came into being from nothing. And then, as conditions changed, it faded. It vanished back into nothing. It was never permanent. It was never solid. It was just a visitor passing through. The Buddha continued, regarding these states, abide unattached, unbound, free, unattached, not clinging to pleasant states, not pushing away unpleasant ones, just allowing everything to arise and pass in its own time, unbound, not tied to any particular state, not defined by what happens to be present. free to be at peace whether joy is here or sorrow, whether calm is here or restlessness. Free. This is the promise of non-identification, not freedom from experience, but freedom within it. The freedom to feel everything fully while remaining spacious and at ease. There is a beautiful image from the Tibetan teachings that captures this perfectly. Imagine clouds wandering through a vast open sky. Great white billowing clouds, or soft wispy ones that look like feathers, or grey clouds that promise rain. Watch them drift across the endless blue expanse. See how they move, how they change, how they never stay the same shape for very long. Now, the teaching says, clouds that wander through the sky have no roots and no home. Let that sink in for a moment. Sit with it. Clouds have no roots. They are not attached to anything. They do not grow from the ground like trees. They do not have foundations like houses. They simply appear when conditions come together, moisture and temperature and wind creating the right circumstances. And they drift along, changing shape, changing size, sometimes joining with other clouds, sometimes breaking apart, until eventually they dissolve completely. They had no roots holding them in place. They have no home to return to. They simply were, for a while, and then they were not. And here is the teaching. Thoughts and emotions are exactly the same. They have no roots. They have no home. They appear out of nothing when conditions come together. A memory arises. A thought triggers a feeling. Circumstances evoke a response. And suddenly there is an emotion. It seems so real, so solid, so important. It seems like it has always been here and will always be here. But it too is just a cloud. It stays for a while, and then it dissolves back into nothing. It was never attached to anything. It was never permanent. It was just passing through, like clouds through the vast sky. We sometimes laugh at the idea of a cloud having roots. Imagine a cloud with a root system going down into the earth, like a tree. The image is absurd. Clouds do not work that way. Everyone knows this. But we do not find it strange to treat our thoughts and emotions as if they had roots. We act as if they are permanent fixtures. We build our identity around them. We say, I am an anxious person, as if anxiety were rooted in us like an oak tree. We say, I have always been this way, as if our emotional patterns were as fixed as mountains. But thoughts and emotions are not rooted. They are clouds. They drift through. They change shape constantly. They are here, and then they are somewhere else, and then they are gone. When we really see this, something lightens. We do not have to carry our emotions as if they were heavy stones. We do not have to defend our thoughts as if they defined us. We can let them come and go, like clouds, like weather, like the play of light on water. Now, it is important to say something here about difficult emotions. Some emotions seem to offer us something. They seem sweet, even as they cause us difficulty. This is especially true of certain states like resentment, or righteous anger, or self-pity. The Buddha described this with a vivid image. He spoke of certain states as having a poisoned root and a honeyed tip. Think about what this means. The tip is sweet. There is something almost pleasurable about nursing a grievance, something satisfying about feeling wronged. Something energizing about being angry at someone who has treated us unfairly. We taste the honey and it seems good. But the root is poison. Underneath that sweet surface, these states eat away at our peace. They disturb our sleep. They keep us trapped in stories of the past. They separate us from the people around us. The more we feed them, the more we suffer. This is why non-identification is so valuable. When we are identified with such states, we taste only the honey. We do not see the poison. We think, I am right to feel this way. This anger is justified. I deserve to feel this resentment. But when we step back into awareness, when we see the emotion as a cloud passing through rather than who we are, we begin to see more clearly. We can taste the honey, yes, but we can also sense the poison at the root. And sensing it, we are less likely to keep drinking. Non-identification does not mean we become cold or distant from our experience. This is a common misunderstanding. Some people hear teachings about not identifying with emotions and think they are being asked to become detached, unfeeling, like a stone. But that is not it at all. Non-identification actually allows us to feel more fully, not less. When we are identified with an emotion, when we are caught in it, we often cannot feel it clearly. We are too busy being it to actually experience it. There is a kind of fog, a confusion, a lostness. But when we step back into awareness, when we become the space in which the emotion appears rather than the emotion itself, we can feel it completely. We can sense its texture, its temperature, its movement. We can be intimate with it in a way that was not possible when we were lost in it. This is one of the beautiful paradoxes of the path. By holding our experience more lightly, we can feel it more deeply. By not clinging so tightly, we can be more fully present. How do we practice this non-identification in daily life? It begins with noticing the language we use, both out loud and in our own minds. When an emotion arises, see if you can catch the moment of identification. See if you can notice when you are about to say or think I am this. And then, gently, experiment with a different way. Instead of I am worried, try worry is here right now. Instead of I am so frustrated, try frustration has come to visit. Instead of I am lonely, try loneliness is present in this moment. This is not about denying what you feel. Please understand this clearly. It is about relating to it differently. You are still acknowledging the emotion. You are still being honest about what is present. You are not pretending to feel something other than what you feel. But you are not collapsing into it. You are not becoming it. You are remaining as the awareness in which it appears. At first, this might feel awkward or artificial. We are so used to the I am pattern that anything else can seem strange. It might feel like you are playing a trick on yourself or using some kind of technique. But with practice, it becomes more natural. It begins to feel like the truth, which it is. And the freedom it brings is unmistakable. You might also try this in moments of pleasant emotions, not just difficult ones. When joy arises, instead of I am so happy, notice joy is here. When peace settles in, instead of I am finally at peace, try peace has arrived. This way, we learn not to grasp at pleasant states any more than we push away unpleasant ones. We hold everything lightly. We let everything come and go. There is a spaciousness that opens up when we stop identifying with every passing state. Think about it. If you are your anger, then when anger is here, that is all you are. There is no room for anything else. But if anger is just something arising in awareness, then awareness is still vast. It contains the anger, but it also contains everything else. The sounds in the room, the feeling of the breath, the light coming through the window, the possibility of kindness and wisdom. This spaciousness is always available. It is not something we have to create. It is simply what is revealed when we stop contracting around our experience. When we stop making each emotion into a prison, we find that we were never really imprisoned at all. The Thai forest master Ajahn Chah used to point to this spaciousness often. He would say that the mind is like water. If you put a handful of salt in a small cup of water, the water becomes too salty to drink. But if you put that same handful of salt in a large, fresh lake, the water is hardly affected at all. The salt dissolves into the vastness. Our emotions are like that salt. If we are contracted, identified, small, then each emotion overwhelms us. But if we can remember our true vastness, if we can rest in the spaciousness of awareness itself, then emotions can come and go without overwhelming us. They dissolve into the lake of our being. As you move through your days, you might begin to notice moments of identification and moments of freedom. They alternate like waves, like breathing in and breathing out. You might be going about your business when some emotion arises, and you might watch yourself contract around it, become it, lose yourself in it. You might spend minutes or hours identified with a mood, completely absorbed in its world. This is not a failure. This is simply what happens. It is part of being human. It is what we have done for most of our lives. But then, at some point, you might remember, you might notice that you have become the emotion. And in that noticing, something shifts. You step back into awareness. The emotion is still there, but now you are larger than it. Now you are the space in which it floats. Now you can feel it without being it. This remembering is the practice. Again and again, we forget. Again and again, we remember. We get lost in the clouds, and then we recognize that we are the sky. We become the weather, and then we recall our true nature as the space in which weather happens. This is the rhythm of the path. There is no final arrival, no permanent state of freedom that we reach and then keep forever. There is just this ongoing dance of forgetting and remembering, losing ourselves and finding ourselves again, contracting and expanding over and over. And that is perfectly okay. That is how it works. That is the practice. Each time we remember, it gets a little easier. Each time we step back into awareness, the pathway becomes a little more familiar. We are training the heart, as we spoke of earlier. We are wearing a gentle groove in the mind that leads toward freedom. The groove becomes deeper with use. The way becomes clearer. The remembering comes more quickly. The great teachings tell us that this freedom is our true nature. It is not something we have to achieve or earn. It is not a prize at the end of a long journey. It is not something far away that we must travel great distances to reach. It is here, now, in this very moment. It is the awareness that is receiving these words. It is the presence that is feeling the breath, hearing the sounds, sensing the body. It has always been here, in every moment of your life, even when you did not notice it. It will always be here. It is what you are, beneath all the passing clouds, beyond all the changing weather. The Zen masters often pointed to this with humor and simplicity. They would say things like, "What you are looking for is what is looking. The awareness you seek is the awareness with which you seek. There is nowhere to go. There is nothing to find. There is just this, always this, right here, right now. The clouds will keep coming. That is their nature. As long as we are alive, thoughts will arise and emotions will visit. Some will be pleasant, bringing warmth and ease. Some will be difficult, bringing challenge and discomfort. This is the texture of human life. It will not stop until we are no longer alive. But we do not have to be tossed around by every cloud. We do not have to become every passing state. We do not have to suffer every shift in the weather as if our very existence depended on it. We can rest in the sky. We can be the awareness in which everything appears and disappears. We can hold our experience with gentleness and wisdom, feeling it fully while remaining free. This is the gift of these teachings. This is the fruit of all we have explored together. Not an escape from life, but a deeper presence within it. Not a suppression of feeling, but a greater capacity to feel. Not a cold detachment, but a warm and spacious embrace of everything that arises. Now, let us rest here in this spaciousness. Feel your body just as it is. This is where freedom lives. When you are ready, we will continue walking this path together. We have learned so much together on this journey. We have discovered how to watch the waterfall of the mind without being swept away. We have practiced recognizing thoughts and emotions as they arise, seeing them clearly, accepting them gently. We have glimpsed our true nature as the vast sky in which all clouds pass. This is beautiful and important work. It clears the ground. It removes the weeds. It makes space. But a garden is not only about removing what does not belong. It is also about planting what we wish to grow. It is about nurturing, tending, cultivating. It is about filling the space with beauty. There is a lovely image that captures the spirit of this practice. Imagine that the heart is a garden. Over the years, many seeds have been planted there. Some are seeds of kindness, patience, generosity. Others are seeds of fear, resentment, grasping. All of them are waiting in the soil. Whichever seeds we water will grow. Whatever we give our attention to will strengthen. This is simply how gardens work. This is simply how minds work. The practice of cultivating wholesome states is the practice of choosing what to water. When we practice loving kindness, we water the seeds of love. When we practice gratitude, we water the seeds of appreciation. When we practice compassion, we water the seeds of care. Over time, the garden transforms. What was once overgrown with weeds becomes lush with flowers. What was once tangled and confused becomes ordered and beautiful. Not through force, but through gentle, consistent tending. This is the work of a lifetime. There is no finish line. There is no moment when the garden is done and we can stop tending it. But that is okay. The tending itself is the joy. The practice itself is the reward. Let yourself settle into this moment. Feel your body resting. Feel your breath moving gently. Bring to mind someone you care about, someone whose face brings a natural warmth to your heart. See them clearly, and silently, gently offer them a wish. May you be happy. May you be at peace. Notice what arises in your own heart as you do this. Perhaps a softening, perhaps a warmth. This is loving kindness. This is the natural movement of the heart toward what is good. Now turn that same wish toward yourself. May I be happy. May I be at peace. Let yourself receive your own kindness. Let yourself be included in your own circle of care. And finally, extend the wish outward, as far as feels natural. To others you know, to people you have never met, to all beings everywhere. May all beings be happy. May all beings be at peace. Rest in this feeling for a moment. Let it fill you. Let it overflow. This is the garden of the heart, blooming. And so we come to the end of our time together. We have walked a gentle path through the landscape of the mind and heart. We have learned that the waterfall of thought is not something to fight, but something to befriend. We have discovered that we can notice, accept, and let go. We have glimpsed the vast sky of awareness that holds all our passing clouds. And we have remembered something important, something that was always true, even before we heard these teachings. That peace is not far away. It is here, in this breath, in this moment, waiting patiently to be noticed. You do not need to hold on to anything from this journey. The teachings will live in you in their own way, surfacing when you need them, guiding you gently back when you wander. Trust yourself. Trust your own heart. Trust the wisdom that is already within you, the kindness that is your nature, the peace that cannot be taken away. As you return to your day, to your life, to whatever comes next, may you carry with you a little more ease, a little more spaciousness, a little more tenderness toward yourself and all beings. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free. Thank you for walking this path. The journey continues, one breath at a time, one moment at a time, for as long as you live. Sleep well, and thank you for joining us here at Sleepy Monk. Tonight, we begin a journey that will carry you deep into rest and plant seeds of profound peace in your mind. These are not lessons or techniques to memorize. They are ancient Buddhist teachings that gently guide you back to the peace that has always lived within you. Before we begin, feel free to share what time it is and where you're listening from. As we journey together through this timeless wisdom, you may find your breathing naturally deepening, your body naturally relaxing. This is not something you need to force. It is the natural response of a mind that finally understands its true nature. The wisdom of Zen teaches us that peace is not something we must create. It is something already here that we must uncover. Like a clear mountain lake that becomes muddy when stirred, our minds become clouded when we struggle and grasp. Settle in now. Relax. Take a slow, deep breath, and let's begin our gentle journey into rest. One of the deepest teachings in Zen Buddhism is about acceptance. Not the kind of acceptance where we pretend to like things we don't like, or where we become passive and stop caring. True acceptance is something much more profound. It is the practice of meeting reality exactly as it is, without adding the extra layer of suffering that comes from wishing things were different. When something difficult happens in our lives, we often respond in two ways. First, there is the actual difficulty itself. Then there is our resistance to that difficulty, our mental argument with reality about how things should not be this way. Zen teaches us that while we may not be able to control the first part, we have complete freedom over the second. And it is often the second part, our resistance, that causes us the most pain. Think of it this way. If you are walking barefoot and you step on a small stone, there is a moment of discomfort. That is the first part, the actual pain. But then the mind often adds a second layer. Why was that stone there? Who should have cleared this path? Why does this always happen to me? This mental commentary doesn't make the foot feel any better. It only adds frustration and tension to what was already uncomfortable. Acceptance in Zen means learning to work with what is actually here, rather than exhausting ourselves by fighting what has already happened. When we stop arguing with reality, something interesting occurs.